After a strong performance in day 8 of New Orleans Saints training camp, A.T. Perry, New Orleans Saints wide receiver, is the one I want to see the most from moving forward as camp rolls along. We got all of that and a little bit of land yap for you on today's episode of Locked On Saints.
You are Locked On Saints, your daily New Orleans Saints podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is good, Who Dat Nation and Who Dat family? I am your host, your friend Ross Jackson, New Orleans native, your New Orleans Saints expert and credentialed member of the media covering those New Orleans Saints. And on today's episode of Locked On Saints, we're taking a look at 3 players that we want to see more from as New Orleans Saints training camp continues on down the road. We'll take a look at tight end Dallin Holker, who just had his best day at camp. Can he keep it going? We'll also take a look at linebacker Anfernee Orji, who has made tons of plays throughout camp. Can he remain consistent and continue to show what he could do over the special team side? And we're going to kick everything off with A.T. Perry, who finally had a strong showing on Friday. I always forget what day it is. On Friday during the 8th day of camp, and now he's got to keep it rolling. We appreciate you very much, as always, making Locked On Saints your first listen and for being an everydayer here on the show, which is a proud part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Make sure you're making every moment more as sports continue sporting over at FanDuel right now. All customers are getting a free boost or bonus all summer long. That is something for everyone every day, all summer over at FanDuel. Just head over to FanDuel.com to get started. So A.T. Perry had himself a nice strong day on Friday. And I'm, looking at today's practice going in on Saturday. I cannot wait to see if he's able to follow it up. He had some nice moments in one-on-ones early on, which, by the way, offensive line and defensive line one-on-ones are now available for the insider group. So if you're not a part of the insider group, join up so you can check those out. I'll tell you how to do that later today. But he ended up winning a couple of reps today. He had a nice route that he ran up against Roderick Teamer, even though he didn't make that catch. He also had drawn a defensive pass interference on Rico Payton, who had a really rough practice on Friday, but he was able to continue to capitalize off of that. He also had a nice rep up against Alontae Taylor in those one-on-ones, caught a couple of passes all throughout these team drills as well. So finally a strong practice for A.T. Perry, who is a player that we've all been waiting to see kind of rear his head a little bit, kind of pop out, separate a bit from the rest of the wideouts. I wouldn't say that this one day is enough to separate him. However, he still has to be able to put together more consistent performances. This is a guy who had 246 receiving yards and 4 touchdowns on just like 15 catches in 2020, or 12 catches in 2023 on just 7 games played, because he didn't really get real opportunity out there until after the Michael Thomas injury set in. And so he ended up going out there and kind of building up all this momentum towards the end of the year that we were so excited to see. Is he going to be able to follow it up and bridge the gap, continue that momentum over to training camp? So far, not so good, but we'll see if now that he's kind of had this day off, he's kind of getting a little bit more accustomed back to the physicality a bit, if he's going to be able to keep what he began on Friday going here Saturday, Sunday, and Monday before the next day off. When it comes to A.T. Perry, you just want to see more than just the face catches, right? The 50-50 balls, things like that. Are those important? Absolutely. Absolutely. He's got to be a big contested catch threat for New Orleans. That is a big value that he brings, especially in the red area. Being able to put the football up for him in one-on-one situations in the end zone. Let him go and cook. Let him go and eat. I think those are good opportunities for him. Absolutely. But can he attack the middle of the field? Can he be usable in the short and intermediate areas? Can he be a possession receiver that can also help you move the chains so that it's not just what he's doing downfield? So much of the New Orleans Saints offense last year in terms of their passing offense was predicated on yards before catch. What could they do downfield? That kind of just became his game, right? So now if he's running more routes, if he's contributing in more areas of the field, if he's attacking the middle of the field and making some tough catches, it's going to help keep him from being expendable early on in his career. And the Saints clearly want things to work out with him. The big issue was when Dennis Allen was talking about his performance so far, and then he defined it as fine. And then when he was asked, is fine enough? He basically said fine's never enough. So he wants more from A.T. Perry, and A.T. had a really nice day on Friday. So what I'd like to see from him specifically is I'd love to see him attacking sort of the short and intermediate areas a little bit more than the deep areas, whether those are crossing routes on those play actions. Saints right now have been running a lot of those play action bootlegs. So you run the fake to, let's say, the left side, the run to the stretch run to the left side, then the quarterback bends back around over to the right side, gets running on the, towards their strength, right? Their throwing arm, because all three of the Saints quarterbacks are right-handed, rolling over to the right. And then what they'll do is that they'll deploy 3 routes that effectively stack on top of one another. One is within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage. The other one is about 10 to 15 yards downfield, or 7 to 15 yards downfield. And the other one is about 15 plus downfield. And all 3 of those routes are also running in the same direction as the quarterback. They're all going in the same way. And so then the quarterback gets to read the depth of the key defenders. Is a defender hanging around too low that should be taking away the second level option? If not, or if so, I'm throwing to the second level. If that defender has too much depth, I can throw to the short area and then let my short area guy go out there and pick up some additional yards. And if something's blown over the top, then obviously you can go ahead and take that shot as well. The Saints have run this a lot over the course of training camp so far and have executed it well. Particularly Jake Haener, I think, has executed this well because his decision-making has been really good on it. And he's not as risk-averse, it feels like, as Derek Carr is. Derek Carr sometimes still not letting the ball go, a little bit worried about risk and stuff like that. That's all going to get worked out. And I'm sure that the Saints are going to do everything that they can to get that out of his system and continue to kind of make him more comfortable with what's in front of him and all those other things. I wouldn't read too much into what I said there. It's just an observation. But we've seen those guys run this a lot and run it very comfortably. I wouldn't mind seeing A.T. Perry maybe be the intermediate option as opposed to the deep option. Get the big-bodied guy that can go out there and make those catches for you in the middle and let him be the one to attack that area of the field. And if the Saints are able to do that, and then if A.T. Perry is able to take advantage of those opportunities, I think that goes a long way for him. If he can prove to be that 3-level threat, it moves the needle big time for the way that he could contribute to this this offense in 2024, and continue to bolster all the different things that it is that he does for this team and with this team as well. The other thing that I think you're watching is him blocking, right? Can he get into the slot and then help you block, extend that offensive line out for these outside zone runs? Can he block on the perimeter for you as well to help you get your running back out to the corner, catch the sideline and take off upfield, all those other pieces? I think that that's a big part too, no doubt about it. But so I think it's the blocking. I think that attacking the middle of the field, attacking the short and intermediate areas, those are all things that are going to kind of grow his portfolio, if you will, as a player. If he can show that he can contribute in all those different areas, then boom, things get really, really simple from that point forward. And we saw a little bit of each of those things on Friday. Like I said, I thought it was a really strong practice for him on Friday. Not the strongest practice I've ever seen him have, but still a very strong practice for him on Friday. I'd love to see him building off of that. One guy that has had several strong practices over on the defensive side of the football for the New Orleans Saints is linebacker Anfernee Orji. He has been outstanding so far here throughout training camp, cannot stop making plays, and I just want to see him keep making those plays. We got that coming up for you as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Saints is brought to you by our friends at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. It's the formula that helps you win championships, and it's also the same formula that helps you keep your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything that you need to be able to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, LED headlights, exhaust kits, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for at ebaymotors.com. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit every time or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts that you need at the prices that you want, eBay Motors has everything that you need to take your car up to that MVP level and start bringing home some huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive today by visiting ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply, and eBay Guarantee Fit available only to U.S. customers. All right. right, family, it is Anfernee Orji who has been making a ton of plays over the defensive side, and I cannot wait to see more of what he has to offer in this New Orleans Saints second level, which has been a very exciting area of the New Orleans Saints defense all camp long so far. We'll break all that down here as we continue on with today's episode. We appreciate you very much for making us your first listen. Don't forget that you can also go and check out the new and first ever when it comes to sports specific news 24/7 channels. We just launched our first ever NFL 24/7 live stream, which you can find on the Locked On NFL podcast. All the biggest stories from around the National Football League covered by the local experts, programmed to give you everything that you need throughout the day. So make sure you go and check it out on the Locked On NFL YouTube page and on the free Amazon Fire TV channels app as well. All part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So Anfernee Orji is a player that has really stood out all throughout the Saints training camp so far. He was a player that I think a lot of folks were high on last year as well when he came in as an undrafted free agent out of Vanderbilt. He has played all three linebacker spots for New Orleans. He has continuously made plays by rushing the passer and getting into the backfield, blowing up the run game by finding the right gaps and shooting the right gaps in run defense. He's dropped back into coverage. He's done a little bit of everything for this New Orleans Saints defense, and he has been a ton of fun to watch. And I think if nothing else, being fun to watch is something that the New Orleans Saints should be very grateful for right now, because they have not been fun to watch over the course of the past couple of years. Now, that might specifically be tied to the offensive side of the football, but it sure is nice to still see on the defensive side of the football as well. And a guy like Orji makes everything more fun. When I look at the different ways that he has impacted so far, getting into the backfield by making sure that he ends up shooting the right gap, making that kind of tackle for a loss. We've seen so many plays in the New Orleans Saints backfield because of how quickly these linebackers are adjusting, reading, reacting, and in kind of clicking and closing is one of the other terms. But so click as in recognize what's going on, have it click, and then close as in close in on the ball carrier. You want to try to get to the ball carrier as quickly as possible. These linebackers are showing you exactly how to do it. Anfernee Orji is absolutely one of them. The other way that we've seen him making some plays is dropping back into coverage. Haven't seen him really get any, pass breakups or batted balls or anything like that, but he's done a good job making the quarterback roll to other options. And in situations where he is targeted, he has tended to be right around the football and therefore in place to also be able to make the play right after the catch. None of these big tight end catch and run type situations are running back catch and run type situations and stuff like that so far here in camp. Now we'll see if the Saints, as they're adding more and more to their offense, if they start to introduce a little bit more of that. But as of right now, Orji's done a good job when involved, keeping that kind of stuff in play. There was another play to where Spencer Rattler dumped the ball off to James Robinson in the flat. He had good protection, had enough time, but nothing opened downfield. So he made the right decision, dumping off to James Robinson over on the right side of the field. And as soon as the ball got out of his hands, Orji closed in on James Robinson. Robinson made the catch, but went nowhere right after. Would have been a gain of maybe one. So a really nice play there, for instance. So he just has like really good instincts. He doesn't feel like last year during camp and stuff like that, where he was still kind of waiting for things to it was almost like, things had to make sense, right? Like you're still trying to get used to what you're seeing and understand what you're seeing and what your responsibility is and how to do it, asking yourself a lot of questions, all these other things. It didn't feel like that has been, it doesn't feel like that has been what Anfernee Orji has been doing so far here through camp. It's like he knows exactly where he needs to be. So he just has a better understanding of, I think his skill set, I think is a part of it. And I think he just also has a better understanding of how he contributes within this system, within this defensive scheme. As well. He had another stop in the backfield on a pitch. So not just shooting the gaps correctly, but being able to beat running backs around to the edge. He has the athleticism to do that. He's like 6'2", 240 or so, like somewhere around that weight. And so he's able to kind of fly around all over the place. And the other thing that I really enjoy about him is that when he makes a stop, he goes nuts. He starts celebrating and yelling, and just like you can see how much it just pumps him up to have made this big stop. And he spoke about it today. He talked or during the media availability after Friday's practice, where he spoke about being the linebackers being the coffee of the defense, where when they make a big play, it wakes everybody up. Everybody on the defense is like, all right, here we go. You know what I mean? And it's like they wake up. And so he prides himself on bringing that kind of energy, not just through his play, but in his reactions, having fun, being out there looking like he's enjoying what he's doing. Could you ask for any more than that? So I really, really liked what we saw from Anfernee Orji and have all throughout camp. This guy didn't come out of nowhere. He has been making plays since day one of Saints camp. And so I just the reason why I have him on the list isn't that I want to see more because of the fact that he's, underperforming or anything like that. In fact, I didn't put any people like that on this 3-person list because I didn't want it to be these players are underperforming and so they need to show up. If they're underperforming and you're not hearing about them. But if they do something like what we're seeing with A.T. Perry having a strong Friday, Dallin Holker having a strong Friday. We discussed and will discuss both of those guys. Anfernee Orji has had a strong performance all through Friday, and I just want to continue to see more of it. I want to see him continue to stack those days and stack those wins. And like I said, the linebacker unit as a whole has just been a ton of fun to watch here so far all throughout Saints training camp. I know Demario Davis is out with injury right now. I think that's fine in that as long as he's okay, he doesn't have to be on the field. You're going to get what you're going to get with Demario Davis. There's no question marks there. But I think you've got question marks elsewhere when it comes to what you're expecting to get from these wideouts, what you're expecting to get from these, or wideouts, but what you're expecting to get from these depth players at the linebacker spot. And so getting to answer a little bit of that with solid performances from guys like Anfernee Orji, with solid performances from guys like Khaleke Hudson and DeMarco Jackson, who each also made some plays on Friday as well. I think that that's all positive. And then at the top of the position group, you've got guys like Pete Werner and Willie Gay next to Demario Davis that have been making plays all camp so far, that have been outstanding, especially Willie Gay, who injects so much energy into this New Orleans Saints defense. Orji was talking about the linebackers being the coffee of the defense. Well, there you go. Willie Gay is the espresso, right? And so I think that that's what you're looking at with this unit. And this was the unit that we were saying, if they can improve the middle of this defense, it all gets better for this defense. The pass rush can bolster. It's more coverage to help them get to the quarterback. It's more coverage from the linebacker spot to help out with what's going on downfield, taking some stuff away from the middle of the field. When the Saints have been diced up in the past on the defense, it's been because of attacking the middle of the field in the intermediate area. It's looking like the Saints are going to be in good position to defend all of that between the way that Alontae Taylor has grown and the way that this linebacking core has kind of stepped up in terms of playmaking ability. And Anfernee Orji is one of the guys that is absolutely helped to make that system and that unit better. Coming up next, let's look at the exact opposite of linebackers. We'll go across the tight ends. Dallin Holker had his best practice as a pro, and I just can't wait to see more of it. We got that coming up for you next as we continue on and wrap up today's episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Saints brought to you by friends at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook and our official sports betting partners here on the Locked On Podcast Network. You might have thought that FanDuel might be taking it easy over the summer. On the contrary, they're doing the exact opposite of that because the sports never stop sporting. The Olympics is ongoing. MLB is ongoing. The WNBA will be back soon. There is so much to check out, and you can even get in now early. If you're a sicko like me and like some preseason betting options, you can do that too. Yeah, you can even bet on the preseason. So go and check everything out that FanDuel has to offer, including Saints win totals, Derek Carr over-unders for passing yards, Rashid Shaheed over-unders for receiving yards, and much more. You can find it all over at FanDuel.com. And right now, they're giving all customers a free boost or bonus every single day this summer. That means there's something for everyone every day all summer long at FanDuel.com. That's where you want to go, FanDuel.com, so you can start making the most of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Let's get it, Who Dat Nation. It has been Dallin Holker day all day on Friday. He was outstanding, and now we just want to see more of it because the New Orleans Saints need some presence from this tight end room. And if Dallin Holker can bring it, I think that's huge for the New Orleans Saints. We appreciate you very much, as always, for being here with us. Don't forget, we are your team every day. We'll be live again later on today at UC Irvine after New Orleans Saints practice day 9, which will be their final padded practice for a few days, right? They're going to go out of pads over the course of the next 2 days, then have a day off on Tuesday before they're back. And I think pads will come back quickly after that. But just a heads up there, we'll be live for you. Probably around 3:30 Central Time is about when we've been able to pull it off here recently. So let's talk Dallin Holker. Dallin Holker had his best practice as a pro on Friday, making several big catches, including a big touchdown catch where he had to sky over safety Jordan Howden, who was in good position. Great ball from Spencer Rattler on that one. We also saw him put a huge block down on a jet sweep to Rashid Shaheed from Derek Carr on that play. He ended up putting a big block down on Pete Werner, who has been a star so far throughout camp. So you're seeing him get comfortable with the blocking. You're seeing him get more comfortable as a pass catcher, as a route runner, all of that. And I think that's huge for New Orleans. I want to start off just looking at all the different ways that Dallin Holker can impact this team if he ends up having a solid rookie season. All right. And the reason why I'm saying it like that is because tight ends having good rookie seasons are not a given. Undrafted free agent rookie tight ends having good rookie seasons, even further from a given. However, not impossible. And if there's any guy that's going to get it done this year, I think Dallin Holker has to be near the top of the list, along with some of the other guys that got drafted, in those that can have solid rookie seasons. I think Holker can make the roster. I think the pathway is there for him. I don't see anybody above him when it comes to the tight ends outside of the guys that you already know are above him, and Juwan Johnson and Foster Morrow. Tommy Hudson ended up getting waived with an injury designation. Jesper Horsted has not outperformed Dallin Holker. Michael Jacobson has not outperformed Dallin Holker. We've just not seen these guys get above him. He's been getting consistent first team reps along with Foster Morrow. He's been getting consistent run with Derek Carr along with Foster Morrow. He has been the other tight end. He has been the second guy behind Foster Morrow. And I think that is something that the Saints, they're trying to give him more and more opportunity. Go out there, show us what you can do. We've seen them coach the crap out of him. I mean, really kind of like lay in on him, make sure he's getting his concepts right. They're drilling it. They're running it with him. They're constantly going over it with him. They're talking to him. Sometimes in these training camp practices, the real work happens in between the reps, not during. And so you see him all the time with a coach in his ear, or him in a coach's ear, or him in another tight end's ear, or a tight end in his ear. He takes a lot of time standing around with Foster Morrow, kind of following around, things like that. He's been a sponge, and it has paid off. It paid off big time on Friday. I mean, the plays that he made, the amount of plays that he made, the amount of times that I wrote his number down, him and Anfernee Orji were the two players that were non-quarterbacks whose numbers I wrote the most in my big, long section of notes from Friday's practice, because they ran so many plays on Friday. So how does Holker having a good rookie season impact the Saints? Well, the fact that he can move around is huge. The Saints deployed him in sort of this split zone release where he's crossing behind the line of scrimmage before the ball is snapped. Once the ball is snapped, he continues his trajectory, gets a full head of steam, can either run a route out to that side. Used to see this with, who was it? Cade Stover all the time, I think, with the Ohio State Buckeyes, I think was the tight end that we saw it with a lot. We saw it a lot with Josh Hill, Michael Onwenu-Nui. The Saints used to do this all the time. And so they released him out that way, and he ended up getting a big block on Pete Werner. As I mentioned earlier, that was that same type of release. But then another time they ran that release with him. He got out, opened in the flat, dump off to him, let him turn upfield, and then see what he's able to do. There was another moment to where with the play action, him kind of crossing. Remember I mentioned sort of the levels concepts? To where you'll have one route coming across the field in the same direction that the quarterback is rolling out, and there'll be one that's in the short area, one in the intermediate, and one in the deep. He was the intermediate guy, ended up getting a big catch that way. Then, of course, he had the big touchdown catch as well, because he's not the tallest tight end at 6'3". Usually when we're talking about tall tight ends, we're talking about guys that are 6'5", like Tommy Hudson, 6'6", like Michael Jacobson. But Holker is about 6'3", but he's got the longest arms of any tight end in the 2024 draft class, I'm pretty sure. And so he has the ability to be able to go up and get them. And he did that all throughout his time with Colorado State as well. So lots of stuff that you can see that absolutely benefits him once he's able to be out there on the field, and the way that he can contribute to this team, to this offense. The other way that he contributes a lot is because of the fact that you can move him around. So not only does he take those snaps crossing behind the line of scrimmage, you can put him in line, especially if he continues to develop as a blocker. You can line him up in the slot. You can line him up out wide and let him run the routes and everything. And there's a lot of stuff you can do with him from there. Called him an F move guy. That this is kind of what that means. You could also take him and put him in the backfield like an H-back, a la Josh Hill, who is now on the team scouting staff, by the way, and let him run some routes out of the backfield or lead block out of the backfield, play a little bit of fullback for you, whatever. There's a lot of creative stuff that you could do with a guy of this caliber and with this skill set, most importantly, because there's just so much that you can ask him to do. So if he's able to go out there and have that level of impact and contribution from all those different areas, it's hard not to see how you don't get him on the field even as a rookie. This doesn't mean that he's going to have 500, 600, rushing yards or receiving yards, but it does mean that he should see the field often enough to be somebody whose name you know. And so with all the opportunity now that sits in front of Dallin Holker, while you've still got Juwan Johnson out, while you have now lost a player and diminished a little bit of the numbers at tight end, there's real opportunity here for him to continue to push, continue to show more. I think he got off to a really fire start. I almost said something different. Fire start over on Friday. Now I just want to see him kick that up, continue to go, and continue to stack good days. And let's see if he's able to do that, because if so, that could mean a lot for New Orleans. That is going to need good playmaking from this tight end room in Clint Kubiak's system. All right, those are the three guys we're hoping to see even more from over the course of the rest of the week. Coming up later on today, we'll be live recapping training camp day 9, the final in the 5 padded game or padded practice series that the Saints have had over the course of the last little bit. And then we'll continue on here throughout the week. We appreciate you very much, as always, for making us a part of your day, part of your routine, for saying yes to me and the show. As always, if you see me, please say hi. And if you need anything else around your New Orleans Saints in between these episodes, make sure you follow me on your favorite social media at Ross Jackson, NOLA. Hit me up. Let me know what the family's doing. Let me know how you're living. Let me know how you're momming them. And trust Who Dat Nation, I'll holla at you.